All right, pastors, thank you. We are here again with Grant, with Peter, with Bob too, trying to help make you successful. Grant wanted to be introduced first, so we made sure that happened on this last and final one, the most important one. Bob, we've covered a lot of material. These pastors are thinking, when is this going to be over? I just want my money. And so we're talking. It's not that easy. They've got to make a plan, correct? A work plan? Tell us about a work plan.
So we want to see that you understand what we've been talking about and that there is an actual plan that you have in place. So you've told us.
Doesn't happen by accident.
No. So you tell us what kind of business you want. You're going to tell us that you have an understanding of what your market is and what's going on in your marketplace, et cetera, why that supports why you picked the business that you've picked. We want you to understand the costs involved, the initial costs and the future costs, and that you kind of understand how you're going to have to budget for these things, et cetera. And then we want to know that you have a work plan. How are you going to accomplish the work necessary to get this business to operate properly?
Now, let me stop you right there. Does the average Kenyan think this way? A little louder.
No.
A little louder.
No.
So this is going to be hard.
Yeah, it's a new way of doing things to many. Well, especially when it comes to the practical part of it. Writing a plan, I think you can even tell somebody to write the plan for you, but that is not what is needed here. Because it's not that somebody else is going to do the business, it's you who is going to do the business. Yeah. So it is you who is making a choice of what you want to do. Yeah.
Okay, so Bob, continue on work plan. This is something brand new to them.
Yes, so to give you an idea of what we're trying to talk about, I went and talked to Patrick. Patrick is a pastor that we kind of started a chicken business already with, and asked him, give me an idea of what your average day looks like. So he told me his work plan for that day. It's 4 a.m. He starts the charcoal up to heat the brooder for the small chicks. 4 o'clock in the morning. 5 o'clock in the morning, he does his morning devotional. Says he will not do anything until he gets his devotional. So 6 to 8, he spends cleaning the coop and to keep the infection and everything down. You have to clean the coop daily. Takes him 2 hours to clean his coop. So,
and let me just grant you talk about possible ideas. Poop is a fertilizer. Mm-hmm. There's a whole new business in cleaning that poop, of going and turning around into fertilizer into other farmers. We have bags and bags and bags of it sold every spring at our Home Depots and our Lowe's. I forgot what they call it, chicken poo-poo or something like that. But it sells big time because it's great for growing plants. So sorry, go ahead.
Okay, no problem. So then from 8 to 9, he feeds his chickens. From 9 to 10, he starts collecting up eggs and getting prepared, sorting for market, that kind of thing. So he is all the way pretty much from 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. He is in his business.
So he's put in 6 hours before he's started his day.
Correct. So at that point, he says from 10 to 1 is his time with his family. He always makes sure that he goes home and spends time, has, I guess what we would call lunch with his family, and spends some time at the family. So then as soon as he's done, he's back to feeding again at 1 o'clock at the chicken coop. He spends 1 o'clock till 5 o'clock doing his ministry. This is the time he spends going to his church, checking in on his school, those kinds of things, 1 to 4. So he spends, at this point in time, more time doing his chicken business than he does his ministry. And then he says when he gets done with that, he has to go back, check on the chickens, make sure everything's okay, secure things, kind of finish his day up there, and etc., before he can head home and then spend his time with his family.
There's no doubt that we've been stressing working hard, and there's no doubt that if you're going to start a business, you're going to need to work harder. But the reality is a lot of it is just going to be working smarter. I think we see somebody like Patrick where he's still getting significant amount of time with his family every day. He's still getting time to do ministry. He's spending time with the Lord. But at the end of the day, he's got a plan that's very specific, that includes a lot of hard work, but it's not unbearable. It's just a matter of consistency and discipline and not missing what you've committed to. And that's what's so important about this work plan. You put the work plan together so that you can work smarter, schedule the time that you need to do everything that you need to do, and then stick to it and commit to it.
And Peter, this what really impressed me in his ministry. He has the sons of Abraham that meet 3 times a week, but he's now at the point where he's delegated the leadership of the sons of Abraham to other people. So sometimes he shows up, sometimes he doesn't. That's not easy for pastors to delegate and to let go of control. Is that correct?
Yeah, that means Patrick has deliberately chose to practice 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse number 2, the things that we have heard of me, and trust them to other people. Patrick has made a deliberate, decision to multiply himself, and that is what many people do not want to do. And when you don't multiply yourself, it means that even if physical death came to happen upon you, most of the time you'll die with the ministry, or you leave confusion in the ministry that you're in, the church or ministry that you're leaving behind. So being busy elsewhere does not mean that the ministry is going to stop, or to stagnate until you come back and so that you can push it forward. It means that you are giving a chance and an opportunity for other people to grow as well.
And let me tell you what one of the biggest hurts of my heart was. A significant ministry leader in India, very outgoing, very talkative, very gregarious. People loved him. Would come to the United States, would go to 25 churches, raise all the support for the year, go back and died, left it to his son because he wanted to keep it in the family, and his son had 0 giftings for that.
Sure.
His son was an introvert.
Yeah.
His son didn't want to talk to anybody. Mm-hmm. And so I met him at the first church in Boston where he started this long trip, and I began to realize, I was asking him questions. Oh, your father wanted to keep this in the family, mm-hmm. Therefore he gave it to you, and you're not gifted for this at all. And he realized, you're right.
Yeah, and ministry should not be a family business per se. And that's, if we look from the biblical point of view, the person who led the people of Israel from Egypt was Moses. And we all know that Moses was the third born among the 3 children that have been mentioned to be the children of Imran. We think that the first one was Miriam, then Aaron. Actually, the Bible specifies that Aaron, the big brother. And when it came to appointing, priests, they were from the lineage of Aaron, not from Moses. And Moses, if it were many pastors today, would have said, "No, God, if there is anyone who is going to be the priest, they need to be my sons, not the sons of my brother." So there's not going to be a family business. When you take it to be, it's God's work. The only way you can be in a position to multiply yourself is to let it go and let people. I talk about passing the baton. Many people, we don't pass the baton, we pass the rope. We tie you with the rope so that we can control you. That's different. Uh-huh. If I'm going to pass the baton to you, then you're going to have the freedom to run and participate and utilize what God has deposited in your life.
Grant, is it possible that there are owners of Chick-fil-A's who pass down key positions to family members and it fails?
It's one of those things for sure. I mean, you can invite anybody you would want to in the business. So ultimately you can pass it to family members and usually it doesn't fail. But at the same time, you can maybe your business just doesn't achieve what it could because you're entrusting it to the wrong people. And so in one regard, hey, your family are oftentimes going to be the people that care about your business the most. They're going to be the people that are most trustworthy. They're going to be people who understand the weight and the needs of the business unlike anybody else. But there's oftentimes too where, hey, we put people in positions or we entrust them to positions that they're not quite ready for because they're family members. And that's where things start getting really dangerous.
Bob, you've seen that in your Your
Seen it-
company.
Seen it in the automobile business a lot, where you have a person who originally owned a car dealership but was a real good businessman, salesperson, whatever, and they raise kids, okay, with the idea that they want them to have this better life than they have, and etc. So they don't really keep them inside the car business. They send them to university, and they go to college, and they learn very different things. Let's just use that. So next thing you know, the father passes away. The son now has a car dealership that he has inherited and has not spent any time in the car dealership. His degree in the university has nothing to do with that, but he does not want the business just to disappear. So here he comes, and he's now going to take over the business, the family business. No real experience, no education on that. We call that, we tell him that he has PhD, Pop has dealership. And they do not do well. Some of them survive, but a lot of them do very, very poorly. We were talking about this, Grant and I. What usually happens, believe it or not, is the next generation picks it back up. So it's kind of very biblical, like the idea that, a whole nother generation had to come up before they got to go into the promised land. Very similar kind of thing. Sometimes it takes a whole nother generation of somebody who says, you're ruining my grandfather's business and I can't sit by and watch this happen. So that son takes over the business and actually brings it back.
I've heard that. Bob, I got us on a rabbit trail. We're talking about work plans. We talked about daily. What about weekly?
So I don't have a specific weekly plan that I got from Patrick. He did not get that to me. But, there are just some things that I know that come up that we would like for you to make sure that you account for. That, the work plan we're talking about is not just daily. There's things that are being done continuously throughout. So an example of some of that is things like, he told me, vaccinations. So he has some vaccinations that he has to do at 7 days. So that would be something weekly. He says some of the vaccinations done at 21 days, some at 2 months, some every 3 months, etc. So antibiotics in the water, he says, is very important to do, and that's done once a week. So that would be a weekly chore that has to be done. So obviously what we're trying to tell you is you need to have a work plan that understands that there are things that you do every day, but there's some things that get done every week, every month, etc. on down, and that you need to account for these things.
Grant, what about your company? What do you do weekly? What do you do monthly?
I think one of the main things we do weekly is we're constantly assessing where we're at as a business, right? And so I think one of the important things as a new business owner especially is actually scheduling the time out to evaluate what just happened, right? And so that's something we do constantly every week. We meet as a leadership team. We talk about the previous week. We talk about specific people in the business on where they're at with their leadership. We talk about different things we want to do with guests and with our customers. We talk about maybe different promotions we want to run. Every month, a month is a good measure of really a specific period of time, 4 to 5 weeks, where we can look back and say, okay, how does this month compare to the same month last year? So we do that every month. We look back on, hey, how did the month go in general? What season are we getting ready to go into? So right now, it's September. Where I live, we're going to be going into a season where it's starting to get a lot colder. So we don't want to get to the really cold weather and then purchase a bunch of cold weather gear for our team members to then have to wait on for another week before they can wear it. We want to start ordering that stuff now so that we don't have a gap in our team members that are outside serving our guests. And so that's just an example of, hey, we know this season's coming up, so we're trying to be proactive. So those are the type of things we're doing. I think constant feedback, this whole 360 feedback idea where we're seeking out feedback from others, we're giving feedback, and we're constantly assessing where our business is at so that we can make adjustments. I feel like that's absolutely essential for any business.
Pastors, I hope you're catching this vision, this concept of, I want to see where I was last year at this point in time. Last year? I used to try to survive day by day. Now I'm looking month to month. Now I'm looking year to year, so that you can say, oh, 3 years ago I was here. Look at what God has done now. So that, like the Israelites who set up the 12 stones after they crossed the river, that you would be able to say, look what God has done in 3 years. Look what God has done in 5 years. And to celebrate his faithfulness. But this is a long-term vision, long-term plan. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. So what they're saying, planning both what? Daily, weekly, monthly, annually, of thinking long-term. We want to empower you long-term in this, so that you're at a point where, hey, I helped 3 pastors start up this year. I gave them what to do. I'm now mentoring them. I'm discipling them. I gave them their first chicken coop. I gave them 30 chicks as a tithe of mine. And so you can see multiplication take place in businesses, because as you've honored the Lord, he's honored you. He's blessed your work so that you are now blessing others. Hard for them to envision, right?
Sure.
But possible, but doable.
It is doable.
And we need to do that.
Exactly.
Bob, the last point in our 7th talk is how to measure results. So we're talking about area of accounting. Help us to understand that.
Yeah, so, by the technical means, accounting is exactly that, accounting for what's going on in your business. So we're talking about accounting for the expenses of everything that you're doing. So keeping receipts, keeping a log, a register of where money is being spent, whether that's, at a business or whether it's just tangibly, just jotting a note down on something. But keeping track of that so that you can, again, measure the results of what you're doing and how you're doing, and et cetera. I think a lot of people, when you ask them things like, how much money did I make or whatever, they really can't answer the question sometimes because they really don't understand how much they spent to get that. They tell you a dollar amount they have, but they don't really understand how much they had to spend to get that they have. So this is a way to do it. Accounting is exactly that, to account for things. So not only that, but you're also accounting for your sales. You want to write down all the sales, how much you sold, what the production was. You definitely want to keep track of that. If you're having chickens that are producing at a certain level every week and all of a sudden they're starting to fall back, you're going to want to know that. The only way you're going to know is if you're keeping count of this. And like he says, you're looking back and say, well, how many eggs did we do last month? And you look back and you add, oh, yeah, we're off. We're not doing well here. Something's wrong. Something needs to be done. What's going on? You're going to have to look at that and figure out, did something happen? Did my chickens get stressed and now they're not producing like they were? Or my chicken's getting too old and I need to, to have been starting to look at replacing whatever. So that's what accounting is about. It's basically figuring out your expenses, your profits, and getting a true accountability of what is that. So ultimately, what are you trying to do? You're trying to figure out whether it's all worth the trouble. Okay? If you spend tons of money to make just a little bit, tons of your time and energy and effort and etc., and you only make a little bit, okay, it may really come down to, this is not a very good business. You could be investing in something better for your time and your money to get a better result. But how do you know if you don't measure it and account for it?
Mm-hmm. Grant, I assume that you would be able to tell me, not you personally, but you could find information of how much you spent on electricity 3 months ago.
Yes.
So you've got accounting on that. You could tell me how much you've been in payroll. Mm-hmm. So you've got numbers for everything in your company.
Yeah. I mean, really every day. I mean, obviously there's some expenses we look at every month, but there's some expenses we track every single day to see where we're at. And for us, the quicker we are to make adjustments, the more success we have at the end of the month. If we wait, if we are employing too many people on a Monday and Tuesday for what we need in the business, if we wait till next week, we still go Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday of maybe paying people a little bit more than we need to. And then we don't make the adjustment for the next week until the next week, which is obviously an extra 4 days of overpaying people. So that's one of those things we're constantly looking at, and you just got to be willing to make the adjustments. But what gets measured, what gets tracked, is what gets fixed. there's no way to fix something where you don't even know that there's a problem.
So you were here with us yesterday doing filming, but you told us what about your day's business at your restaurant?
Your Saturday's business.
Yes.
Best day.
Yeah. It was one of the best days we've had, and I think it was the second busiest day for sure since I've been there in 6 months. So it was a really great day.
So even though you weren't there at your business, okay, somebody there knew that this is information that you would want to know, right?
Right.
'Cause
And
that's
somebody's
what we
keeping track of it.
do. And somebody's tracking it.
So for some people like me, I'm not a detailed person. But my wife is detailed. My wife runs our accounting. She runs our finances. I keep asking the big picture, but she runs the details. You as the pastor may be the visionary pastor type and not the detail. Maybe your wife is. Team up together, hopefully, and take those numbers. Make the accounting. It's hard work, but it pays off in helping you figure out whether you're being successful or not. Bob, second point you do that is called forecasting. What's forecasting?
Well, we talked about forecasting for future expense, to kind of foresee what's coming in expansion or whatever the case may be. But also what we're talking about is we want you to be able to forecast your future sales based on how things are going, the production of my chickens, the costs that are involved, how many I'm selling, et cetera, how minimized loss I can have on those things, et cetera. I should be able to project out what my future profits should be. Okay? Again, do you make adjustments? Do things happen? Yes. But as a rule, for myself, Grant, I know we've talked about this, I can pretty much tell you exactly how much more profit I should make this year than I made last year, and I could probably tell you that in the middle of the year by the trend I have going for the first 6 months. Unless something crazy happens, maybe a COVID or something like that, I could pretty much tell you. I have enough history, enough of a track record to basically expand that to get a good idea of what my year should look like. Based on that, it will give me the ability to make some of those decisions about, do I expand this year? Looks like I'm having a good year. Looks like if it continues the way it is, I should have X number of dollars available. This is a good year for me to talk about expanding my coop, making it bigger, getting an incubator, whatever.
Which goes and moves into measuring results. Grant, you can tell us how much your business grew last year, right? What percent?
Well, I was at a different restaurant last year, but last year, we grew about 26%.
26%. So they've got to be up. You've got statistics where you measure results, you see how you're growing, you give God the glory, and then, okay, now we can expand here or do this or maybe hire this. Or so measuring results is very, very key.
And it can become a source of inspiration and goal setting, right? So many of our goals and what drives the team is, hey, we want to beat what we did same month last year. Well, in order for the team to celebrate and to know that we beat the same month last year, is that they actually know we're tracking it. Everybody's aware, and so in the same way, I think there will be seasonal changes to the chicken business, but I think part of our motivation becomes, hey, we want to grow, we want to do better, and that.
Yeah, but see, a good business will account for all that. They'll track the seasons, and that they know certain seasons are better than others. They'll track holidays because the spending and the et cetera around a holiday maybe. So we'll look at, so how did we do last Thanksgiving compared to this Thanksgiving? In comparison to chicken, sales, et cetera, whatever. They know these numbers. They know to compare that if this is a big time of the year, how are we doing compared to where we were before, last year, last month, whatever the case may be.
So I had a friend in my church who grew sheep to sell to the Muslims because he knew when their holidays were coming. He knew that everybody was going to want their own to sacrifice it and to celebrate, and that was his business, was based on the holidays of the Muslims.
There you go.
So a lot of different ways of looking at it. What are the? It's not just my Christian friends. What are the Muslims? What do they eat? What's their celebration? What are they doing? Going that way.
There is one business, when you say that, there's one business I know that actually does extremely well for the entire year for the one season at Christmas, and they sell the Elf on a Shelf. and that's all they sell, and it's only during Christmas time that they sell it. And it actually supports their entire business for the whole year.
We have lots of groups that have summer businesses. They sell ice cones. So shaved ice, shaved ice, and they put some flavoring in it. They make so much money in the summer, they take the rest of the year off. And so there are those seasonal type businesses that do that. Bob, we're semi running out of time. Let's go on. You've talked about how to measure results daily, weekly, monthly, annually, keeping track on that. But I'm a big picture type person. So you talked to me a long time ago about your 5-finger rule. Give me the 5-finger rule, which would be a good, for our pastors, a good overview, a good big picture, bird's eye view of what we're trying to do in the business.
Yeah, so anytime I wanted to do any sort of major changes or additions or anything to my business, and I had to go see my owner to bless this for me, I felt like if I needed to have these 5 things covered. If I had these 5 things covered, I felt like I had a very good chance or opportunity to convince him to let me do. So the first was, what is it that I want to change? I need to explain to him what it is I need. Why do I think I need it? I think it needs to be changed.
Number 2.
That's number 2. Number 3 is, what is the cost involved to change what I want to change? And then
Number 4.
4 would be, what is the return on investment? If I do change it, what kind of return on what we spent to fix it am I think I'm going to net for doing it? And then lastly, and just as importantly, is how or what can I do to prove the results, to measure the results of what I've changed? So if I could go in with those things already covered, I felt like I had would be able to answer any potential questions that were asked of me of, why do you want to do this? What makes you think this is a great idea? Have you really thought about how much it's going to cost us? What am I going to get back for my money if I spend that kind of money? And then how do I know it's going to work?
How do you
get
measure
to prove to me that it is working? The only thing they ever ask me at the end of this as a final thing is, Bob, you seem like you're very passionate about this. You've done your homework. You really seem that you really want to do this. I only ask that since it is your suggestion that we did it, that if you go to measure results and results aren't good, passionately get me back out as fast as you got me in. Cut your losses and move on. That not always is every idea a great idea. Sometimes the smartest thing you could do is quit.
Okay, Peter, our time is coming to a close, and I want to ask you, you've heard all these lectures, you've heard all these 7 talks. What is the biggest paradigm shift that pastors need to make in order to make this successful? What's going to be the hardest thing for the pastor out in the bush to adjust to?
Responsibility, being responsible. And this responsibility comes with accountability. You need to open up your life for accountability in this aspect of business. I know many of my fellow pastors, they are not used to, being accountable to somebody else, especially when it comes to maybe in this area of finances. You could be the one who is the founder of that church. You could be the one who planted that church or something else. And so kind of everyone else listens to you, but there comes a time that now you have to listen to somebody else in order for you to make it. So that opening up your mind and opening up your life in order for you to get help that is needed, that is something which is very, very important. And what we're saying that if we fail to plan, we are definitely planning to fail. And that is not what we want. If we've not been working so well with other people in terms of business, then we need to bring up other people, which we're saying that this is not a church business, it's a family business. And we have to make that distinction. We have had very painful cases of where a pastor dies, and this pastor has been staying in the church premises or in the church compound, and within a month or two, another pastor is sent to this church, and the wife of the late and the children of the late are told, man, you've got to find somewhere else to stay. These are painful things. So that is why you are saying that we are not being helped to start a church business. If that ever comes, so be it. We are being helped to start our family, our personal or family business, something that primarily is aimed at serving God by serving your family even before you serve others. Sure.
Good. Bob, any last words?
Yeah, I would tell you that I'm surprised that's what your answer. I'm going to tell you my honest feeling is I have an uneasy feeling on the fact that there's just a lot of cultural expectation about being able to think past today.
Yeah.
Today for Africans. How am I taking care of my family? How am I going to feed my family today? To have them understand that they have to think about tomorrow, a week, a month, I think is a challenge for them. I think that there's, for lack of better things, from our standpoint, temptation is going to be a big problem. They're going to be tempted a lot along the way to think that it'll be okay, it's only one chicken. Okay, one chicken becomes another chicken, it becomes one a day, kind of thing. I think that's going to be what we're going to start hearing about, is that temptation of, I've got chickens out there and my family has not eaten today. I've got to go do this. In their mind, they're going to believe that it's the right thing to do for their family.
And others may be guilting them.
Yes. They're going to have family members that say, this is crazy. You've got all these chickens and we're hungry.
You're not loving me.
Yes, you don't love me. You don't care for me. They're going to have to be able to again, explain through. I love you so much that I am not going to do this for you right now because I want to be able to do more for you later.
Yeah, and that is what exactly the Bible says in the book of Galatians, that as long as the heir remains a child, his inheritance remains in the hands of the guarantors. So until he matures. So if we don't mature in some of these areas, the inheritance that we need to have material-wise, in order for we to help our families and to help others, will remain in the hands of the other people. So it's upon us to struggle and to strive to mature in these areas. As we said, the paradigm shift from a survival mentality to a thriving mentality. I want to thrive so that I can be of help to my family and of help to other people.
Grant, any last words?
No, not really. I think you guys covered it. I mean, I'm excited about just seeing where God takes the people that, he's sort of used us to prepare. And I think when it's all said and done, I think there are these core values that are absolutely key. But I think, again, there may be some people that fail, but we don't want them to fail because of we don't want them to fail when they have all these resources to succeed, right? So in other words, I feel like hopefully the only way that people will fail is if they don't leverage a lot of the things that we're trying to teach and that we're trying to explain. I think as long as we do these basic things, that we commit, we're disciplined, all that, I think there's no reason people's businesses shouldn't evolve and develop and get better over time.
Amen. Well, there you have it. Thank you, pastors. You've struggled through 7 videos or audios, whatever you're doing, either watching or listening. Thank you for that. We trust and pray that you are successful, that in 3 years' time, we'll be able to give you a call. You'll be able to tell us how you made that year before, what you're doing now, what your projections are, so that you can give glory to God, so that you can be a blessing to others, so that people will look at you and say, I want to be like that person. That person radiates the glory of God in all that they do and all that they are. So thanks so much. And talk to your pastor who got you involved, or give us an email and tell us of your interests, and we'll start going from there. Bye-bye.